Were you able to solve this week's Excel challenge? Well, let's find out what Excel MVP Alan Murray did to solve this Power Query challenge. Here we go.
Okay, so let's look at achieving this challenge. Now, both tables are already loaded as connection-only queries. So let's open the Power Query editor. If we click Data, Get Data, Launch Power Query Editor. The editor opens and shows both queries on the left-hand side. So if I click on Test 1, it will show in the preview area. Here we have those list of students who sat Test 1 and information such as their name, date of birth, date joined and score. Test 2 is consistent. It has the same columns with the same names, but this is only the students who sat Test 2. Now we want to produce a table with only the students who sat both tests. So we will use a merge query with an inner join to show only the rows from both queries. I will select Test 1 query, and from the Home tab, use the drop-down arrow for Merge Queries and use Merge Queries as new. I'd like to create a third final query that can be loaded to the Excel worksheet when we are finished. Test 1 is already shown as it was active when we started the merge query. I will choose Test 2 from the drop-down list provided and then specify the key columns. In this example, we identify the students by using both the first name and the last name columns. So this is a test of your ability to merge queries using multiple column criteria. To do this, I can click on the first name column, then click on the first name column in the second table, Test 2, then holding down the Control key on the keyboard, I can select the last name column and then last name again in Test 2. And we can see the small number 1 and number 2 shown next to the column headers. Both columns are used to uniquely identify the student. At the moment, the join kind is a left outer, commonly referred to as a classic kind of lookup join. But from that drop down, we are going for an inner join. Only the matching rows from the two tables. With that selected, the preview tells us we match 7. And if I click on OK, that will create that third query, currently named as Merge 1. We have a list of the students from both tables. Currently, we can see the information relating to the Test 1 table with a new column with the table Test 2. So our next step is to extract the columns that we want from the Test 2 table. And what we need is the score column from that table. So if we click the button in the header to expand that column, uncheck all of the boxes except the score column, and also uncheck the box to use the original column name as prefix. Clicking OK will bring that column in. That is the score for Test 2. The other column is the score for Test 1. We will rename those column headers later. I don't want to do it now because I know additional columns are going to be created and I do not want multiple rename column steps. I think the next task we will accomplish is with the first name and last name columns. we need one column from those two laid out in a last name, comma, space, first name format. So to do this, we can select the last name column, then hold Control and select the first name column. Now it's important to do it in that order. The order I've selected them will be the order that they are merged, or the order they are concatenated. So to do this, from the Transform tab, because I don't want a new column, I want to replace these two, we will go for Merge Columns. We get a nice user-friendly window asking for a separator to be used. And from that list, we can choose Custom, and in the box provided, use a comma space. That is the separator that we want. We can then give the column an appropriate name, and I think I'll just call it name. And click OK. Those two columns are now transformed into one, labelled name, with the last name, comma space, first name. Next, we will handle the calculation of the age. So if we select the date of birth column to put the focus on that column, and once again, we want to stay on the Transform tab because we have no need for a date of birth column in the end solution. We want the age instead of that. Now just bear in mind, we're not losing any data here because we still have the original test 1, test 2 queries and tables. It's just the end solution that we don't need this date of birth column. So keeping with the Transform tab, we have some calculation buttons on the far right. One of them is date, and from there we have the option for age. Clicking that will replace the date of birth column with an age calculation. Now we want the age in the number of years. So with that done, and it has this time data type at the moment, that will open up the button for duration. So clicking duration, we can specify total years, and now we have the number of years as the age. But we still have a few decimal places, so we're going to round that down. There is a rounding button also on Transform, and we will round down to the nearest year, and there we have our age column. Once again, I don't want to rename it yet. We'll leave that to the end and do one rename column step, because next we need to add a new column, and this will be the total score. So if we select the first score column, which is the test 1 score, hold Control and select the score 1, which is the test 2 score, and this time we are going for the Add Column tab. Because we don't want to transform those two, we want a new column, a third score column. And for this, we are going for the Statistics button and Sum. And there we have our third column, an addition of those two, our total score. Now that we have the total score, we can create another column which we need. This will be a conditional column which will display the word pass if the total score is a value of 140 or higher. Otherwise, display the word foul. So from the Add Column tab, I'm using the Conditional Column button to get this nice user-friendly window. And I have a step in here to name the column. So we may as well do that now. And I'll call it pass/foul. If the addition column is greater than or equal to the value of 140, then display the word pass. Otherwise, display the word fail. I click OK. Now we have that column. So the final steps remaining really here are to name our query, to rename some of the columns, and to change some data types. So let's do it in that order. I'll begin by renaming the query. So if I right click the query on the left, rename, and we'll call it end solution. Now we will look at renaming the columns. So we have a name column, we have a date of birth. Let's double click and name it age. Date joined is good. Score, let's rename that as test 1 score. Next we can have test 2 score. Then we can have the total score. And then the final one has already been named. Now to change the data types. So we have text for the name column, whole number for age. We have date joined. Now that definitely needs to be corrected, but let's look at the rest of the columns first. We have whole numbers for the scores, and then pass fail. Let's change that to a text data type. And now we'll come back to the date joined, because that needs a little extra effort. We have a date coming in as a number. Now we can't just change that to a date. If I choose the data type and select date, I'll get an error because I can't convert that number directly into a date. So let me come over and remove the change type step. And unfortunately, that means I'll change pass fail again to text. But this time in date joined, we will change it to text first. We'll change from a number to a text data type, and then go back to the data type button and go from text into date as a better transition. We will be prompted whether to replace the current step or to add a new step. And we definitely want a new step because it's important we change it to text first and then date. So we need that original step, that previous step, and now have a new one. And we have the date type. So that is us finished. We just now need to close and load it into a worksheet. So home, close and load to. New worksheet as a table. Let's load that in and our job is complete. I hope you enjoyed that challenge and were successful. You may have taken a slightly different approach to me at different points, and I'll be interested to hear what you did. But challenges like this really allow us to push ourselves and improve our Excel skills.
So there it is. Did you get the same results? Did you use the same approach? Or did you try something different? We'd like to know. Share your take on the challenge in the comments below, or join us for more discussion in our Slack channel, link in the description. Thanks for participating, and make sure to subscribe to this channel to get an alert when the next challenge is released. We'll see you then.